Now, the YouTube prank scene used to be some of the biggest content on the platform, but over the past few years, it's definitely fallen by the wayside as creators have gotten better with video production and the quality has definitely been raised up and the bar has been raised up for quality in videos. That type of content has definitely fallen off, but there's still some that do it. Some do it successfully, more so than others. But then there's some that come up and they're like, oh man, I want to be the next YouTube prankster and, revive this type of genre. Even though I don't think that'll ever happen, there's still some clout chasers out there. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today, is a YouTube prankster that finds out the hard way that not everything in life is a joke, especially when you confront people in a threatening manner. So Alan Coley actually got some headlines when this happened last year, and we're going to talk about his situation, the concealed carry story, the video that goes along with it, and the aftermath from this. I also want to talk about what the prankster may or may not have learned. I think you'll be surprised to see his reaction after the verdict in this case, but also I want to talk about carrying a firearm at your place of work and the decisions, sometimes very tough decisions, that you have to make when it comes to that. Now, of course, if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. Now, this case was covered pretty heavily because there was a situation with Alan Coley that was actually controversial inside of the gun community itself, and that talks about the USCCA. Now, from what I understand, and I just want to do this very broadly, this part of it, he was never dropped by the USCCA. He chose the public defender, even though you can choose any attorney you want under the USCCA's membership benefits. He chose the public defender. He liked him that much. And again, he said, hey, USCCA never dropped me. Now, here's a video that I talked about on stream just a couple of days ago that I am going to do. It's going to take a little bit of work to get there, but I want to compare these concealed carry insurances. I've talked about the USCCA, and I have promoted these guys in the past, so I want to make sure that they are still up to the standard that I believe they've always been. But if that is up for debate, I want to make sure that I, in the future, am promoting the right people, because that's a very important thing all of us should have to be able to protect yourself and your finances if you ever have to use your firearm in self-defense. But I want to make sure that I'm promoting the right company. So I'm going to be doing some comparisons. Make sure that your subscriptions are turned on and they weren't magically just turned off, by the way, on the platform here. Now, Alan Coley is a DoorDash delivery driver. He's made the decision that he needs to carry a firearm for self-defense. By the way, this happened at the Duels Town Center Mall up in Virginia, and he runs into our prankster, and this is how it all plays out.
What?
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my twinkle.
What's that mean?
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my twinkle.
No.
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my
Get out of
twinkle.
my face and call top sign. Stop.
Hey, Dip, quit thinking about my twinkle.
Stop!
Now, of course, the whole video isn't there, but as you can see, Alan Coley pulls the pistol out when he feels threatened enough and actually puts one shot into our prankster. Now, there's some things I saw that Alan did right, and there's one thing in particular I saw that he did wrong. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the decision to carry a firearm at work in the first place. This is really a personal decision that everybody is going to have to make. To give you some personal kind of experiences here, when I first got my concealed carry permit, I was working for an auto parts place, right? And I asked one of the main bosses, I said, hey man, we're in a bad area. We work late. Is there any way that I can, carry my firearm in here to protect myself because I just recently got my permit? He said no. Now, did I go against what he said and carried my firearm anyways? Well, let's just say I never had any issues whatsoever, and I was able to leave that place safe, and everybody that I worked with felt fairly safe around me as well. Now, that's the same place that I talked about where I learned that Loctite on your screws for your Tolster holster, they recommend doing that for a reason, and I found that out the hard way at that same place. I've talked about that story in the past. But regardless, sometimes you have to make these tough decisions. And here's the thing. If you're not promoting this stuff, right? If you're not going around telling everybody, oh yeah, I can still carry a gun, all the time, blah, blah, blah. Is anybody going to know? Well, maybe, maybe not. If there's a disgruntled employee or you don't get along with somebody, obviously that information gets around to them. They may tell upper management, right? One thing to consider though too is depending upon your state, and I think most states have it where employers actually have to have signs that tell employees you cannot carry on these premises or no firearms allowed on these premises. Very similar to the signs that need to be in place for private establishments if they don't want you carrying inside their businesses. They also need to have clear language inside of their handbook. Now, does that mean an employer can't still fire you if they find out that you're carrying, if they don't have the signage, if they don't have clear rules in the handbook? No, they may be able to still fire you, and they may do that. But that's where, again, some of those tough decisions have to be made. We all want to get home to our families. We have to keep our jobs as well. But again, sometimes just being quiet, right? Doing your job, doing your thing. And also, just don't promote it to the world, right? Don't be fumbling around with it. Find something that works for you. I've talked about a number of different firearms, holster choices, all of that, where nobody would ever know. But that's a decision you have to make, right? Don't come to Heckshot if you get fired because somebody found out that you're carrying, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to be able to help you out if that happens. These are tough decisions, and I totally understand that, and I have been there. Now, my most previous job, right? Everybody knew what I did, right? The channel was much bigger at this time, at the second place that I'm talking. So everybody knew, they knew my channel, right? So we all talked about guns. I mean, it was like a daily conversation, right? All talking about guns and whatever else. And I got along with pretty much everybody there. So it's not like people were looking to rat me out or anything. Hell, my bosses knew that I carried. So it wasn't like, I was being really sneaky about everything, but still, nobody ever saw that firearm, right? It's not like I was like, oh yeah, I carry a gun. Hey, check it out, pulling out my shield or whatever. And I tried a number of different ways to carry there as well, from ankle to the urban carry to my Tolster to the tuckable oath. I tried a number of different things there. Some work better than others. But again, I had to make that decision for myself and for my family and for the people that I work with, because I didn't want to see anything happen to them either if some deranged ex-employee comes in, or a current employee, or a pissed off customer, right? Or any number of things. We've seen so many different scenarios now where anything could happen. And I made that decision for myself. And that's something you're going to have to do as well. And remember that your car in a lot of states is an extension of your home. So if they tell you you can't carry guns inside your workplace, that doesn't always necessarily apply to your car. Sometimes it may, though. Again, you got to kind of look for signs, clear language, and sometimes just make tough decisions. That's where I'll leave that. Well, Alan Coley made this decision. He had seen enough instances where DoorDash drivers, Uber drivers were being attacked, some of the most heinous attacks that we've seen on some of these guys, right? That make our lives easier. They make our lives easier, right? Some people will DoorDash their, all their groceries or a gallon of milk or any number of things. And yeah, it's an expensive service. I'm not saying that it's not, but these guys are subject to any number of incidents because you're dealing with the general public and pretty much any and everybody, right? You never know who you're going to run into. He made that decision. Now, as you can see, our prankster here is much taller than Alan Coley, right? So he goes up to him. Now he's got this stupid saying on his phone that he's holding right up to him, right? And we see Alan say no 3 times, and he even swats the phone away from him at one point. And this is where I think he did a really good job of making it known that he didn't want anything to do with this guy. He doesn't know it's a prank. He's not looking at the cameraman, right? He sees one guy that's towering over him that has something right there in his face and another person with him. Now let's just say that there's some people that are built for making good pranks, right? They have a look about them that is not intimidating, even when they're trying to be serious, right? There's a couple guys I can think of that I find really funny, even when they're doing things kind of similar to this, right? Funny Marco or Ed Bassmaster. I find those guys hilarious, right?
When I see a car like this, first thing I do is I say, would you look at this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But they have a certain look to them. And it's not being judgmental. I'm just telling you what I would see, right? With this particular prankster, if he comes up to me, he doesn't look like he's joking, right? There's no, the seriousness of the way he looks does look threatening from what I can see, right? It's not like this guy is particularly threatening, but his look can be perceived as that. And to be quite honest with you, I checked out his channel, and one of the things I find comfort in is knowing that after this incident, his like to dislike ratio has gone way up through the roof. So that gives me hope that people see that this guy is not as funny as he thinks he is. He's gotten some clout from it, but that whole like to dislike ratio really does, it says a lot about our prankster here. Now, Alan tells him, no, 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 slaps the phone away from him, and this prankster continues to follow Alan. He gets fed up, he gets intimidated, and however he feels at this time, he pulls his firearm, and that's where we see him take the shot. One single shot. And I see when he pulls out his firearm, I don't know if he has this in a holster or not. I tried to find details on the gun used, the holster, whatever. I could not find that stuff, but if you have information on that, that would be good to know. But either way, the first thing I see is that when he pulls that gun out of his hoodie, his finger is already on the trigger. The muzzle is pointed towards himself, though, so that is one thing you want to keep in mind. Depending upon how you carry, the holster choice, and the position, you always want to practice that draw and make sure that your finger never touches that trigger until you are on your target, right? Very, very important, because there could be a chance, depending upon the type of gun, the trigger pull, he could have injured himself right there. So, just one of those things that I wanted to point out. Now, did he take it too far, right? Was it too extreme? Not necessarily. He doesn't know what this guy is doing. It's really easy to say, oh, that's just a prank. But he doesn't know that. He just sees somebody trying to be intimidating towards him, holding this thing in his face, and will not leave him alone. And at this point, he feels threatened enough to pull out his firearm. It was a very quick response, I think, overall. And Alan still gave him the benefit of the doubt by telling him no, 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 push the phone away. At that point, you could tell, hey, this guy doesn't want anything to do with you or what you're doing, and then he still continues to follow him. At that point, I think Alan is totally justified in what he did, and the jury felt the same way. They actually found him not guilty on the malicious wounding, nor the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. But they did convict him of unlawful discharge, which is still a felony in Virginia. So he could still lose his gun rights. Now, fortunately, his public defender is fighting back against that, and rightfully so. It doesn't make any sense. You're saying that Alan's decision to use his firearm was not malicious. It was self-defense, but then you say he unlawfully discharged the firearm here, right? If he acted in self-defense and you find him to be within the bounds of the law, how is it unlawful when he discharged his firearm? So hopefully that goes away too, because that's one of the things with these self-defense cases. You don't ever want to have to lose your gun rights when you are in the right. When you've made a decision like that, you go through all of the trauma mentally, hopefully not financially. Hopefully you have carry insurance, and again, that is something I'm working on to make sure that I'm recommended the best out there. So anyways, that's for a future video, but hopefully not financially, because that can ruin a family, right? But you don't want to have to worry about the fact, oh, now I can't own a firearm for the rest of my life because I had to use one in self-defense. So they gave him time served, and he's out of jail. I think he did 8 months in jail, and the judge gave him time served. And so, it cost him 8 months of his life. He was acquitted on the 2 serious charges, and hopefully he'll win that third one. And as of the date of this video, he hasn't. I think he has a hearing on October 19th of 2024. So this is a really interesting case, man. We see it all unfold on camera, of course. He made a decision to utilize his concealed carry, make sure he had it on him no matter where he was, and he used that in self-defense, and he was acquitted, but he was also charged. So it really brings to light some of those just tough decisions that we all have to make as concealed carriers at work, and also when to use a firearm, right? And when you can use that legally and not, you know, have yourself ruined or sitting in jail for the rest of your life. The decisions he made before to have concealed carry insurance, be with the USCCA. And again, from what I know, they never dropped him, and he's still with them to this day. And then I watched an interview with the prankster after the verdict was handed down, and his response to it, I think, is one of the most irritating things. He's got an irritating face, right? He's got a face that's, well, you know, but his response to it, like, oh, you're just gonna have to wait and see if we're gonna do videos or not. Then he kind of says, oh yeah, we're still doing video. You know, he's just trying to gain more clout off of this, right? And he's got a little bump in his channel since then, but I would recommend not quitting his day job, and for sure seeing the like to dislike ratio made me kind of happy, actually. So there's that, man. You can't mess with people. Not everything in life is a joke, and not everybody is built for comedy. Let's just be honest, and this is one of those cases as well. I'd love to hear your opinion, though. No matter if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.